All right, diving in today, we've got a whole stack of articles and reviews all about the 2025 SCOTT Patron eRide. Seemed like it might just be a game changer, you know?
Oh, definitely lots of buzz around this one.
Yeah, so this deep dive is for anyone, really, who wants to get the lowdown on this bike, thinking about buying one, just curious about all the fancy tech. Or maybe you just like geeking out on the latest mountain bike stuff.
Guilty as charged on that last one.
Me too! So, first impression, just looking at this thing, it's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right?
Yeah, they really went all in on that integrated design.
A motor, the battery, even the shock, it all blends in so seamlessly. You almost can't tell it's an e-bike at first glance.
It's like they sculpted the whole thing from a single piece of metal.
And they even managed to squeeze in an integrated rear light. Super sleek, but I gotta ask, doesn't all this integration make maintenance a total nightmare?
That's a good point. Yeah, some reviewers have brought that up. Accessing internal components could be tricky, especially for the home mechanic.
Yeah, imagine trying to replace a cable in that tangle.
Right. But on the other hand, SCOTT has a reputation for really sweating the details.
True, they're usually pretty good about serviceability.
So we'll have to dig into those reviews and see what the real-world experience is like.
Speaking of details, did you catch how they routed all the cables and brake lines? They just vanish into the frame. It's like magic.
Super clean looks.
And they even combined the track lock lever and the dropper post-remote into one neat little unit. Talk about space saving.
That track lock system is pretty clever, actually.
What? Tell me more.
Well, it lets you adjust the FOX, FloatX, NUDE shock on the fly.
On the fly, so like while you're riding?
Yep, 3 different settings.
Okay, so what are they?
Climb, ramp control, and descend.
So basically 3 different suspension settings at your fingertips.
Exactly. Pretty handy for adapting to different terrain.
And for those of us who maybe aren't suspension wizards, they even threw in a sag indicator right there on the rear linkage.
Makes setup a breeze.
No more guesswork or those complicated sag measurement tools.
Just set it and forget it.
Okay, let's talk about the heart of this e-bike. The motor. The Patron's got the new Bosch Performance Line CX Gen 5 motor.
Heard good things about that one.
Yeah, super powerful, whisper quiet. And apparently they finally got rid of that annoying clunking noise. You know, the one from the previous generation.
Oh, yeah, that was a common complaint.
Especially on descents where the motor wasn't actively assisting.
Just kind of ruined the flow.
Totally. So getting rid of that is a huge win in my book.
Agreed.
Now for the long hauls, the Patron packs a Bosch Power Tube 800-watt battery.
That's a pretty decent capacity.
Yeah, should provide plenty of range for most rides. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can even add an optional range extender.
Always good to have that option.
But there's a catch. You got to sacrifice your bottle cage space.
Ah, the eternal e-bike dilemma.
Range versus hydration.
Tough choices.
Up in the cockpit, the Patron keeps things pretty minimalist. You've got a wireless mini remote for controlling the motor and a Bosch system controller on the top tube. That just shows the basics. Battery life, support mode, that kind of thing.
Definitely a streamlined approach compared to some e-bikes with those big full-color displays.
Right, like the whole Kiox 300 setup.
Yeah, some riders might miss having all that data at their fingertips.
True, but I kind of like the clean look.
It's definitely a matter of preference.
All right, time to geek out on the components. Our test bike, the Patron ST900 tuned. It's decked out with some seriously premium ditties. Let's start with the suspension. We've got a FOX 38 factory Grip 2 fork up front and a matching FOX Float X Nude factory shock in the rear.
Nice.
Both with that buttery smooth Kashima coating, of course.
Gotta have the Kashima.
Reduces friction, makes the suspension incredibly responsive.
Top-of-the-line stuff, usually found on high-performance mountain bikes.
Yeah, not messing around here. And to bring all that power to a halt, we've got Magura MT7 4-piston brakes with massive rotors.
Oh yeah, those are some serious stoppers.
220 millimeters up front, 203 millimeters at the rear.
Plenty of stopping power.
But some reviewers did mention potential issues with noise and vibration.
Yeah, that's something to keep an ear out for.
All right, moving on to the drivetrain. We've got the SRAM GX Eagle AXS transmission. This wireless system is the real deal.
Smooth, precise shifting, no cables to worry about.
No more tangled messes. I'm sold.
It's been a game changer for mountain biking.
And the Patron ST900 tuned rolls on a sturdy set of Synchros Revelstoke 1.5 alloy wheels, wrapped in those premium Schwalbe Magic Mary and Albert trail tires.
Nice combo. Those tires are known for their grip.
Yeah, designed for some serious off-road adventures. Now, this thing isn't exactly a lightweight. It comes in at a hefty 24.3 kilograms.
Yeah, all that tech got to weigh something.
But it's not outrageous for an EMTB, especially one packed with this much stuff. And for those who are wondering about the price tag, prepare to shell out a cool $10,999 for the top-of-the-line model.
Definitely puts it in the premium category.
No doubt about that. But before you think the Patron is only for riders with deep pockets, StatTech-T actually offers a whole range of models at different price points. You've got the Patron 920, starting at a more reasonable $5,999 model.
So there's an option for a wider range of budget.
Exactly, and for those seeking even more downhill prowess, the ST series is worth checking out.
Ah, yes, the ST series.
These models boast 170 millimeters of travel up front, ready to tackle those gnarly descents.
Built for the more aggressive rider.
And for those who are thinking about a more versatile option, something for commuting and everyday use, there's the SCOTT XIS FS.
Interesting, haven't looked at that one yet.
Well, it shares the same frame platform as the Patron, but it comes with all the extras. Mud guards, a rear rack, integrated lights, the whole shebang.
So it's like a Patron dressed up for city life.
Exactly. SCOTT really seems to have covered all the bases with this platform.
They're trying to appeal to a wide range of riders, for sure.
So we've got the specs, the features, the different models, but now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does all this translate to the actual ride feel?
That's the key question, isn't it?
The Patron ST features an adjustable head angle, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Lets you fine-tune the handling.
Make it more stable at high speeds or more agile on tight trails.
Exactly, and the reach figures vary across sizes, of course, so everyone can find a comfortable fit.
Ergonomics are key.
But there's one potential snag that some reviewers pointed out.
Oh, what's that?
The seat tube length. It might be a bit limiting for some riders, especially those who want to run a long travel dropper post.
Ah, I see.
Something to consider if you're on the taller side or like that really deep dropper post insertion. So we've talked about the looks, the tech, the components, but the big question remains. Does the Patron actually live up to all the hype?
That's what we'll be finding out in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned! All right, so we're back. We've covered all the specs, all the tech, all the fancy bits of the SCOTT Patron eRide. But let's be honest, what we really want to know is, how does this thing actually ride?
Well, the reviews we've been looking at, they're pretty much all saying the same thing. The Patron really does deliver. It seems to offer a really intuitive and balanced ride on the trail.
Okay, but intuitive, balanced, what does that actually feel like? One reviewer said it was like the bike disappeared beneath them, like it just became an extension of their own body.
Right, you see that a lot in reviews.
Yeah.
But there's actually some truth to it, I think.
It's not just marketing hype.
Right, because when a bike's designed well, it should feel natural, predictable. It should let you focus on the trail, not on fighting the machine.
So you're saying SCOTT actually achieved that with the Patron?
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
They've really nailed the balance between the geometry, the suspension, the weight distribution.
And that Bosch motor, everyone's raving about how effortless it makes climbing.
Yeah, the Bosch Performance Line CX Gen 5, it's known for its power, its responsiveness, especially in those technical climbs where you need that extra boost.
But it's not just about raw power, right?
Right, it's also about how that power is delivered.
So it's smooth, predictable.
Exactly. It doesn't feel jerky or unnatural. And they've also managed to eliminate that annoying clunking noise.
Ah, the dreaded clunking.
So yeah, those climbs should feel much more enjoyable.
Okay, and remember that track lock system we talked about?
Uh-huh. The one that lets you adjust the rear shock on the fly.
Right, so did the reviewers actually find it useful? Or is it just a gimmick?
Definitely not a gimmick.
Yeah.
It actually makes a huge difference. Imagine you're grinding up a fire road.
Steep fire road, yeah?
You flip that track lock lever to climb mode. The rear shock firms up, gives you a really solid pedaling platform.
So you're not wasting any energy bobbing up and down.
Exactly. Maximum efficiency.
Okay, but then you hit the descent.
Boom. Switch it to descend mode. The shock opens up, ready to absorb all those bumps and roots.
It's like having two bikes in one.
Pretty much, yeah.
So climbing's taken care of, but what about those gnarly descents? Does all that integration, all that tech actually translate to confidence on the trail?
Well, from what I'm reading, it seems like a resounding yes. Reviewers are consistently praising the Patron's stability, especially at speed.
Even on technical terrain.
Especially on technical terrain.
So what's the secret sauce?
Well, it's probably a combination of things. The integrated battery and motor, that creates a really low center of gravity.
Right. Keeps the bike planted.
Then you've got the well-tuned suspension and that balanced geometry.
It all works together.
Exactly. It gives the rider a sense of confidence, a sense of control.
So you can really push your limits.
Okay, got to talk about the Bosch eBike ABS Pro system. That's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, it's a real game changer in terms of safety. Think about it. You're bombing down a loose, steep section.
Heart's racing, adrenaline's pumping.
Suddenly, you need to brake hard.
Obstacle in the trail.
Without ABS, that front wheel could lock up, send you flying over the bars.
Yeah, not a good situation.
But with eBike ABS, the system's there. It modulates the braking force, prevents that lockup, keeps you in control.
So it's like having a guardian angel on your handlebars.
Pretty much.
Okay, so the Patron sounds pretty amazing so far, but let's be realistic. Are there any downsides? Any potential issues that riders should be aware of? Well, like with any complex piece of machinery, there's always a chance things could go wrong.
Right, nothing's perfect.
And with a bike like the Patron, with all that integration, maintenance and repairs could be a bit tricky.
So you're saying accessing those tucked away components might not be easy.
Right, you might need specialized tools, expertise.
Not exactly ideal for the average home mechanic.
And then there's the availability of spare parts.
Oh, right. Especially with newer technologies like the integrated suspension and that e-bike ABS.
It might take a while for those parts to become readily available.
Especially in certain markets.
Yeah, definitely something to consider.
So if you're thinking about dropping a big chunk of change on a high-end EMTB like the Patron, you've got to think long-term.
Yeah.
Maintenance, support, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. It's not just about the initial purchase price.
Right.
Got to factor in those potential maintenance costs down the road.
And speaking of potential concerns, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the weight.
Ah, yes, 24.3 kilograms.
Not outrageous for an EMTB, but still, it's a lot of bike to be lugging around.
Especially if you have to hike a bike up a steep section.
Or lift it over obstacles.
And that weight could be a factor for some riders.
Especially those who are used to lighter, more traditional mountain bikes.
It's definitely a different feel.
And then there's the price. We can't ignore that.
The Patron ST900 tuned. It's a serious investment.
No doubt about it.
But then again, you are getting a lot for your money. Cutting-edge technology, high-end components, a riding experience that, from what I'm hearing, lives up to the hype.
Yeah, it seems like SCOTT really hit it out of the park with this one.
It's a bike designed for those who demand the absolute best.
Okay, so we've established the Patron rides like a dream, but let's dig a little deeper into some of the design choices that make it so unique. Let's start with the geometry. You mentioned earlier that it has an adjustable head angle. Can you walk us through how that works and why it matters?
Sure, imagine you're heading to a bike park. One with those super steep, fast descents.
The kind that make your heart skip a beat.
Right, and you want that stable, confident feel at high speeds. So you use the integrated angle headset to slacken the head angle.
Slacken meaning?
Meaning you're making the angle slightly smaller. This basically shifts the front wheel forward a bit, makes the bike more stable at speed.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then let's say you're riding a tight, twisty single track.
So where agility is key.
Right, then you can steepen the head angle, move the front wheel back, make the bike quicker to turn.
So it's like having a custom bike setup for every trail.
Exactly.
That's pretty neat, but is that something the average rider would actually use? Or is it more of a pro feature?
I think it depends on the rider, really. Some people love tinkering. They want to fine-tune every little detail.
Get that perfect setup.
Right, and then others are happy with a more set-it-and-forget-it approach.
But the option's there if you want it.
Exactly.
Another thing that caught my eye was the consistent chainstay length across all frame sizes.
Interesting. Most brands adjust that proportionally.
Right, so remind me, what are chainstays again? And why does their length matter?
So the chainstays are the part of the frame that connects the rear wheel to the bottom bracket.
The bottom bracket, that's where the cranks rotate.
Right, and the length of the chainstays can really affect how a bike handles.
So longer chainstays, they make for a more stable ride.
Generally, yeah, especially at high speeds. But they can feel a bit sluggish on tight trails.
Makes sense. And shorter chainstays.
They make the bike feel more agile, playful, but they can be less stable at speed.
So it's all about finding that balance. So why do you think SCOTT went with a consistent chainstay length for the Patron?
Well, they've opted for 454 millimeters across all frame sizes. Seems like they're prioritizing agility, responsiveness, even on the larger frames.
Interesting, but wouldn't shorter chainstays on a larger frame make it feel unbalanced?
It's a valid concern, but I'm guessing SCOTT has compensated for that by tweaking other aspects of the geometry, like the head angle and reach.
To make sure it feels balanced across all sizes.
Right, it's all about that holistic approach to design.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the suspension system. The Patron's a full suspension bike, 170 millimeters of travel up front, 150 at the rear. But what makes this suspension special?
Well, first off, you've got that FOX Float X NUD factory shock, specifically developed for the Patron in collaboration with FOX.
Oh, so it's not an off-the-shelf component.
Nope, it's a custom design with an external reservoir. This allows for a larger volume of oil, better heat dissipation.
So it can handle more abuse.
Exactly, those long punishing descents. The shock won't fade or feel harsh.
And this shock works with that track lock system, right? The one that lets you adjust the compression damping on the fly.
That's right, the track lock integrates seamlessly with the NUDE shock. 3 settings: climb, ram control, and descend.
We talked about those earlier.
Right, so in climb mode, the shocks basically lock out. Nice firm platform for climbing.
And then ram control mode, that increases the compression damping.
Prevents the bike from bottoming out on big hits.
Okay, and finally, descend mode. The shock's fully open.
Max traction and plushness for the downhill.
So it really is like having 3 different bikes in one.
Pretty much, yeah, and it's all at your fingertips.
Gotta love those on-the-fly adjustments. All right, let's talk about stopping power. The Patron ST900 Tune rocks those Magro MT7 4-piston brakes.
Ah, yes, those are known for their power and reliability.
Magri is a solid brand.
Definitely, and the Patron's also got those big rotors.
220 millimeters up front, 203 at the rear.
Yeah, gotta have that stopping power, especially on an EMTB.
So bigger rotors, that means more stopping power.
Exactly, more leverage for the brake pads, more braking force, better heat dissipation.
Important on an EMTB, since they're heavier than traditional mountain bikes.
Absolutely, you need those strong brakes for safe descents.
But some reviewers did mention that these brakes can be a bit noisy.
Yeah, and prone to vibration.
Is that a common issue with high-performance brakes?
It can be, yeah. Those larger rotors, powerful calipers, they can sometimes create a bit of noise, especially under hard braking.
But I guess most riders would rather have powerful brakes that might be a bit noisy than weak brakes that could compromise safety.
Absolutely, safety first.
Okay, let's wrap up this part of our deep dive by revisiting one of the Patron's most innovative features, that Bosch eBike ABS Pro system. Just to recap, how does this system work and why is it so important?
So imagine you're riding down a steep, loose section of trail. You need to brake hard to avoid an obstacle.
Tree root, rock, whatever.
Right, without ABS, that front wheel could lock up. You lose control, potentially crash.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
But with the Bosch eBike ABS Pro system, you've got sensors monitoring wheel speed and brake pressure. If a front wheel lockup's detected, the system kicks in, modulates the braking force, prevents that skid.
So it's like having ABS in your car, but for your mountain bike.
Exactly. It provides that extra layer of safety, especially in those panic braking situations.
Where your instincts might take over and lead to a crash.
Right, and what's really cool is how seamlessly it's integrated into the bike.
You hardly notice it's there until you need it.
It just works in the background, keeping you safe.
And this system's connected to the Bosch eBike Flow app, right?
Right, so you can actually track things like the number of ABS interventions, braking distance, all sorts of useful data.
So you can see how the system's performing and maybe even learn a thing or two about your own braking habits.
Exactly. It's not just about preventing crashes, it's also about education.
Helping riders become more skilled and confident.
Absolutely. It's about empowering riders with technology.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. Geometry, suspension, brakes, even e-bike ABS. But we're not done yet.
Right. Still some things to discuss.
In the final part, we'll be talking about who this bike's actually for, the overall verdict, and some final thoughts on where EMTB technology is headed.
Stay tuned.
All right, final part of our deep dive into the SCOTT Patron eRide. We've seen the looks, the tech, the performance, but the big question remains, who is this bike actually for?
Yeah, that's where things get interesting, isn't it?
Right, because on the one hand, you look at the spec sheet, and it's like, whoa, this is a serious machine.
Those high-end components, those features, it's definitely aimed at the hardcore e-mountain biker.
Right, the adjustable geometry, that super responsive FOX suspension, the drivetrain's built for aggressive riding.
It's a dream setup for someone who really wants to push their limits.
But then you also see things that suggest a much broader appeal, like that integrated taillight.
Oh yeah, great for safety, visibility.
The option to add mudguards and a rack.
Makes it more practical for everyday use.
And even that e-bike ABS system could be a game changer for less experienced riders.
Exactly. It's like Sky FTD is trying to cater to 2 different audiences at the same time.
The hardcore rider who
Right.
wants the best of the best.
Yep.
And the more casual rider who's looking for a versatile e-bike.
Right, maybe it's not just for one specific type of rider.
Maybe it's for anyone who wants an EMTB that can do it all. From tackling technical trails to cruising around town.
I think you're right, those lines are definitely blurring. We're seeing more and more EMTBs that can handle a wide range of riding styles.
And the Patron is at the forefront of that trend. Okay, time for the final verdict. After all this deep diving, what are your overall thoughts on the SCOTT Patron eRide?
Well, it's hard to deny that it's an impressive machine.
Understatement of the year.
They've really pushed the boundaries here in terms of both integration and technology.
Visually stunning, performance-driven, and surprisingly versatile.
Exactly. And when you look at the details, you can see how much thought went into this bike.
That seamless design, the powerful Bosch motor.
That incredibly adaptable suspension system.
Clearly not a rush job.
But we do have to acknowledge the downsides, of course.
Right, the potential complexity for maintenance.
The weight, the price tag.
Yeah, it's not exactly a budget-friendly option.
But as we've seen, you often get what you pay for.
And with the Patron, you're getting a lot.
Cutting-edge technology, high-end components, and a riding experience that seems to live up to all the hype.
I think this bike really represents a glimpse into the future of e-mountain biking.
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing this convergence of technology and ride experience, and the Patron is a perfect example of that.
No doubt about it.
So, final takeaway for our listeners, if they're thinking about getting an EMTB, should they run out and buy a Patron?
Well, it really depends on their individual needs and priorities.
Of course.
And their budget.
Can't forget the budget.
But if they're looking for a bike that really pushes the boundaries, something that combines performance, versatility, cutting-edge technology,
then the Patron is definitely worth a serious look.
even if you're not in the market for a new bike right now, the Patron is a fascinating case study.
It sparks a conversation about where EMTB technology is headed.
And what riders can expect in the years to come.
It's a reminder that the cycling world is constantly evolving.
And there's always something new and exciting on the horizon.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder. The SCOTT Patron eRide really blurs those lines between technology and ride experience. Is that the future of mountain biking? Or are we sacrificing too much simplicity for the sake of all these fancy features? Something to think about as you head out on your next ride.
Until next time, happy trails!